Ben, give me an update on David Senra. Is he in the waiting room? Does he have the Zoom link?
I mean, we're talking about the most powerful man in Miami.
He is the most powerful man in Miami now. You know, we had Keith on, but Keith has kind of relinquished it a little bit. He's got his toes in DC. He's got 1 foot in Silicon Valley now.
Right.
Senra isn't making a move. He's locking down the islands. He's establishing
He's
himself.
not leaving.
He's not leaving. You're going to have to drag
leaving.
him out of Miami. Yeah. And I would be happy to drag him out of Miami.
Actually, it's very easy to get him out of Miami. You just got to send a private jet.
Yeah. He really does hold the bar well.
Yeah, he holds a line.
It's remarkable how he set that bar and then still manages to get on a plane twice a week. You would think that would reduce the amount of travel, but somehow it does not. Anyway, Senra. Hopefully he hops on. He says he needs 5 minutes.
That was like 4 minutes ago.
You know, maybe we should just play a little bit of his podcast on our podcast.
The dynamic range between the average quality and the best quality is at most 2 to 1.
But
in the field that I was interested in, I noticed that the dynamic range between what an average person could accomplish and what the best person could accomplish was 50 or 100 to 1. So given that, you're well advised to go after the cream of the cream and to build a team that pursues the A-plus players. And that is exactly what Ramp did. Ramp has the...
Right, we're in the middle of a Ramp ad. It's hilarious. Oh, hey,
there
David's
he
here.
is.
I'm playing. I was listening to your latest episode, and there was some good. There was a really good quote in there, and I didn't realize it was in the middle of a Ramp ad.
That's funny. I caught the tail end of you talking to Eric.
Oh yeah, that's great. How you doing, man?
Good. I just actually saw Eric last week. We had breakfast. I flew to New York for a super secret dinner that I'm making an episode about right now.
Ooh, that's fun.
So me and Eric had breakfast the very next day.
Very cool. Very cool.
Amazing. Every time I tried to ask Eric something personal, he perfectly redirected it into talking about
saving money,
saves businesses time and money. Can you help us psychoanalyze Eric? Because he's just like this, and he's truly a one of one in the sense that I was kind of positioning it as like building a $13 billion plus company and maintaining that level of sort of genuine kindness is like very tough. And I'm curious if you have any sort of like opinion or sort of like comps.
I just have the answer. Like when I made the documentary about Ramp, like I was interviewing him with that exact question, like, hey, you're so nice, but like you're running this like kind of cutthroat company in this like hardcore industry, like how is this possible? And it kind of got peeled back the onion and got to the fact like he had a brother who got bullied a lot, and like he developed like this insane empathy. That was my takeaway. I was like tearing up while I was talking to him about it. It was really, really like kind of like a crazy like early life to like deal with, and that clearly gave him like a new level of empathy because he went through all this stuff with his brother. It was wild. Anyway, but Senra, what's your take?
I spent much time with him. I do when I say on the Ramp ads, my friend Eric, that's not like hyperbolic. I would say that the larger, like the more important idea is like you actually don't have to be like a complete. Listen, I think Steve Jobs is one of the best, founders of all time. If there's a Mount Rushmore of the history of entrepreneurship, he's got to be on it. It doesn't matter like what the other three are, but he's definitely one of them.
Yep.
But people hear how like, how he spoke to other people, and they just like, oh, like to be like him, I have to be like that. And it's just like, no, you don't. Like if you look at the greatest, when I went to Charlie Munger's house and had dinner with him, like he said that he feels the greatest founder of all time was Rockefeller. And one of the craziest things about Rockefeller is like there'd be people that worked for him for decades that said he never raised his voice and he never said an unkind word. So I think there's like this myth that there's like this one size or one way to be successful. In fact, I was on a long walk with a friend last night, and we were talking about Michael Dell. One of them, regardless of what you think, is like one of the most successful people that ever lived. Has a phenomenal relationship with his son. They're like best friends, from what I hear. Very, very proud that he's still married to the same woman. Like anybody that spends time with him says the same thing. He's just unbelievably thoughtful and kind. So yeah, I one, with particularly Eric, it's definitely not an act. And two, I don't think, it's a prerequisite for success. This is like one of the reasons I tend to work alone, is because I am really fucking mean. And I don't like that. I would wish I wasn't so, like intense around that, and I'm perfectly fine being that way with myself. I just don't like doing that to other people.
That's why when you said you liked our podcast, I took it really serious because I'm like, he just wouldn't say that.
Oh, no
He would
way.
be very authentically
He's
like,
brutal.
yeah, like this isn't for you, bud.
I mean,
Like-
I've sent him so many things to review, and I'm just like, it's not bad, right? And he's like, have you listened to it?
So you see this bookshelf behind me. Let me zoom out a little bit.
Like,
So
you think it's
it is
luck?
it holds like 600 books or something like that.
Yeah.
And let me see if I can change this.
Yeah,
So they're
that's good.
actually in order by episode number.
Right? Yeah.
And one thing that I love about there's another like 300 books in my living room, and I walk past it every day to get upstairs. And one of the books has the title in like big bold letters in the spine. And it's applicable to a lot more industries than you think of, and it's definitely applicable to podcasts. But the title of the book is "Competing with Idiots," and I think like
Senra,
that.
you know, we're doing the same thing here with posts, right? we have every
we
post
have the Library
printed
of
out,
Alexandria of
every
posts.
post printed out in order that we reacted to them on the show.
So
Yeah, you're
remember
gonna be
when,
able to
remember when you
But
guys were like,
it's bigger than your bookshelf.
you remember when you guys had this idea of like you were going to sell your podcast in vinyl?
Yeah.
And so I hope you make that into a book, and I would buy the Technology Brothers book of tweets.
We're definitely
go.
thinking about
The
that.
banger
Definitely thinking
archive.
about that. I think with the
but-
vinyl thing, where we got was we want to send you our favorite episode of Founders on vinyl. Something like
There
that.
you go.
And
Okay,
then, and then
maybe.
send that to Patrick. And then, so like
Yeah.
the Jeremy Gaffon episode goes out because you get that on vinyl. It's like a fun thing. You could like put it on your bookshelf or something. It's a little
Dude,
trinket.
I actually think it's really smart. There's been multiple occasions. So like, you can't see it, but behind my desk. So Sam Zell, there's a bunch of people. I'm actually
Yeah.
reading Michael Ovitz's autobiography.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a preview of the episode that has been killing me. I
us.
wanted it out 2 days ago, and it still won't be done.
Oof, brutal.
And he had a full-time gift guy. And this has actually come up a lot in the books. Sam Zell he spent millions of dollars a year, from my understanding,
Yeah.
on his full-time gift department. In fact, he'd build these like automatons, right?
Yeah.
And he'd have a theme. And I actually spoke at this guy's conference, and he's like, "Do you want anything for this?" I was like, "It's in Miami. I don't give a fuck. I'll do it for free. And we're friends anyways." And he's like, "All right, I have a gift for you." And he actually found one, and he bought me a Sam Zell like automaton. But I think the Technology Brothers, especially because you're doing it 5 days a week, you're gonna have all these guests. You should have like a gift department
Yeah.
where it's like thoughtful like here's your favorite episode on vinyl, or like
Yeah.
whatever.
I mean,
you guys
isn't
can
that
think
in
of.
How to Win Friends and Influence People? The whole idea of a Rolodex, you save
You
everyone's.
said that was your favorite book, right? Just kidding.
I mean, I thought Patrick O'Shaughnessy said he rereads it all the time. I read it. It is a fantastic book.
is
It's
a
one of
good
these
book.
like timeless books.
Evergreen.
It's a little ridiculous because it's like it's such a like it's clickbait title, but you know, clickbait works.
Yeah,
don't know.
no. The value, I like things that the value prop is in the title, actually. I think
Also,
that's
it's so old timey. Like it's an interesting artifact because it's like it's the type of like business advice that you'd see on like a thread on Twitter these days, but it's from like the 1920s. So all the examples are like really
because
antiquated.
it's advice on human nature, and human nature
Exactly. Hasn't
So, like
changed.
that's
Yep.
why people still
100%.
read it. And like Charlie Munger's, one of his favorite book was Influence by Robert Cialdini. He liked
Yeah.
it so much he gave him a single share of Berkshire stock when it was valued at like 500,000. I think today it's like 750.
Wow,
A pretty good compensation for writing a book.
that's awesome.
That's amazing.
I love that. When are
Yeah.
you writing a book?
What's that?
When are you going to write a book?
Never. You're gonna get
Pod
me started.
dominance.
No, because like here's the thing. Like I told you before, I mean, you guys know this because like I kind of like cornered you at Hereticon about
Yeah.
how important podcasting is.
Yeah.
And I get like it's very nice because like as you guys know, most of the books I cover are like really old. But
Yeah.
publishers send me all of their like new books, and
Sure.
I might do like one new book for every like 50 old books.
Yeah.
And they send me their new books for distribution, but they're also like, were you be interested in writing a book?
Yeah.
And my point to them is like I think of podcasting as like one of the greatest technologies ever created. I think it's the printing press for the spoken word. And
Yeah.
so and I think it's the highest and best use of my time. So me taking time away from that to do anything else but more podcasting doesn't make sense. Now that I talked to my friend Jimmy Soni, who I absolutely love, and he wrote this great biography on Claude Shannon.
Yeah, he
wrote
spoke at your
this
event.
book called What's that?
He spoke at your event.
You wrote the PayPal
Yeah.
book, right?
Yep.
He wrote The Founders, The History of Founders. He's like another psycho-obsessive. It took him longer to write the Founders book than it took PayPal to be founded and then sold to eBay. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
That's crazy.
but I called him. I was like, hey, just name your price and, listen to the podcast. We'll have some conversations. And if you can write this for me, like in partnership, then I'd be interested in doing that. And so what I told him to do, so one of my favorite books is Will and Ariel Durant's The Lessons of History, right? You really think about that book. It's like they dedicated 50 years of their life to writing the history of civilization. It's probably, I don't know, what, 10,000 pages all combined. And yet after that, they're like, hey, we're going to do this fucking ridiculous thing of trying to write a biography of the human species, and we're going to limit it to 100 pages. So I was like, okay, I would want to do that. Like, what are the most important ideas that we've unveiled so far through the podcast in the 8 years of its existence? And write like, this is about like the most important ideas in 100 pages. And so he's got a bunch of stuff going on, including 2 books that are really fascinating that he's writing, but he said he's going to do it.
Very cool. Who are the entrepreneurs that are still building their legacy that you are hoping that they will live up to their full potential and one day be qualified to be, given the full Founders Podcast treatment? I would put Eric and Kareem in that bucket of, ultra high potential, but still, sort of just getting started in a sense. Are there people that stand out today that you're excited to cover in, 15, 20 years, right?
I'm going to tell you who my favorite founder alive is right now, and it's going to be surprising to people. Because I heard your episode yesterday where you talked about like how I'd call you up, John, and I'd like find a simple idea and take it seriously. And I think that's one of like the best pieces of advice. And you see it over and over again. I've been able, and some of these people I can't fucking name because of the podcast, but I've been able to meet like these crazy, family businesses where the founder's 80 years old, still running the company, no outside investors, worth $10 billion. And, they've just monopolized like crazy stuff like nails or packing equipment or shipping company or just like crazy, like not very complicated ideas, just like they found a simple idea and took it very seriously. I think one of the things I like about Eric and Kareem is before we had this like very deep partnership. It's not, obviously you guys know this is not just like, I'm not just like reading ads for them on my podcast. Like we're friends. We spend a lot of time together. Our wives spend time together. Our kids play together. And it took a long time getting to know them really well. One of the important things when we talked about this is like, is this your last company? Like, I'm not interested in like the people that want to start, scale, and sell. I'm interested in people that do something for a very long time. If you look at all the books behind me, these people literally worked. Enzo Ferrari, right here. He died. He worked on. There's no retirement. Like it's like Ferrari is my entire life. This is what my life energy goes to. This. Most of the people I cover on the podcast, their life's work. And what I loved about both Eric and Kareem, are like, this is the last company. Like this is we want to build this forever. There's actually an interesting idea. And I'm trying to convince Kareem to do more. Not that he needs my advice by any means, but I really want him to be interviewed by Patrick. Just because I get to talk to him privately, and he's like fucking brilliant technical mind. And one of the things that he said that was very fascinating is he optimizes for spikes. And what that means is like, especially as the company grows, you tend to like try to like even out and like hire for personality or like, yeah, this guy's talented, but he's kind of like an asshole, or he's like comes in late or like, will show up for 2 days and kind of disappear. And I think what Kareem understood is what a lot of history education entrepreneurs understand. There's a great line by David Ogilvy where he said that talent is most likely to be found against among misfits, nonconformists, and rebels. And what Kareem is interested in is not like your total package. He's interested in your very best idea. So like if you were the very best at X and he just wants you to do that for ramp. And if you only last for 6 months, that's fine. It's like, he optimizes for spikes. And I think that's incredibly intelligent, because it's also something that Steve Jobs says, that he's like, you can never, ever, ever, ever forget the dynamic range of human beings, that most things in life, between the average to the best, it's like 2 to 3, two times best, 3 times quality, where he's like in software and hardware, it's like the difference is like 100x or 1,000x.
Yeah, marketing too. Not just 10x engineers, 10x ideas, 10x marketing
100%.
You can see it with Apple right now.
What's that?
You can see it with Apple right now.
Genmoji it.
Like it's not crazy to think of the yin and yang campaign that they ran as 1,000 times better than the Genmoji campaign.
Yeah, and again, where does that come from? Where like Eric and what I like about Eric and Kareem is like they work like dogs, just like I do, right? And I'm really only interested. I just came back from lunch. The reason I texted you guys 5 minutes late is because I was meeting another founder friend of mine, and we had lunch with another friend, and it's like all three of us have the same in common. It's like we're taking what we do very seriously. It's all different businesses, but Kareem works nonstop, right? Eric does too, and they want the pressure, and they do believe, like something that Eric told me that was wild at breakfast was like when Ramp was founded. Amex was like a $70 billion market cap company, and now it's like 220 or whatever. So I heard at the very end he's talking about, yeah, people were saying, hey, we're valued at 13 billion, that's fine, but like, we're missing a zero, maybe two zeros. Like if we're doing this for a long period of time, things grow in unpredictable ways. Like the people that I've met,
I didn't ask him the question of, I'm genuinely curious. Like, what do you do if you have 5 minutes in the day? What are you doing for fun? And I don't even think that's worth asking Eric because I know he's just going to say, look, I like to, keep in touch with my family, but otherwise I'm at the office, or I'm thinking about work, or I'm calling Senra. But yeah, it just didn't even seem like worth asking because I already know the answer.
One of the most interesting things, I think they just put this out in that blog post, but we definitely talked about it too, is like, they're doing like 54% of their payrolls are dedicated to R&D. Like they're not just like, oh, we're look what we did in this amount of time. It's like, no, we're going to keep pushing the pace. This is again what when I went to New York, I had dinner with Mike Ovitz. That I had an intense 3-hour dinner with Ovitz. So I'm making an episode on the dinner, and I'm making an episode on the book. And the way this came about is because I was at breakfast with a friend of mine, and his phone was on the table, and it rings, and it's Mike Ovitz, and he picks up and he puts on speakerphone. He's like, "Hey, I'm actually sitting here with my friend David. He does this podcast you should know about, founders." And Mike, without missing a beat, he goes, "I love that podcast. I listened to 4 episodes yesterday." And one of the things that me and Mike talked about at breakfast is like nothing that Michael Ovitz said in his book or at dinner is like surprising to me, because it's like founders is church for entrepreneur. It's just I just telling the same story over and over again. It's the same personality type over and over and over again. And so yeah, of course, like when they're saying, hey, we're extremely dedicated to what we're doing, we're trying to get better, it's like that's exactly what they should be doing. If this is going to be your last business, if this is your life's work, then you will have that like importance of every little detail. Like how many you guys see all the tweets when people talk about the difference of like the UI and UX to Ramp to compared to some other people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and your point about Apple. There's a great book called Creative Selection. It's episode 281 of Founders. I think the title is Working with Steve Jobs, if I'm correct. Might be wrong. Maybe 282. Probably 281. And that's one of the best books. I've read it 3 times because it talks about the care that Steve Jobs put to every single pixel of all the products they're making and all of the advertising. So that ad wouldn't have gone out because Steve would have had to approve every single ad that went out. There's a different level of care and love.
Yep.
What's your sleep score?
What's your sleep score?
Not good. And I love Mateo. They were one of my early partners. Here's the problem, because I'm so excited about this is gonna be a big year.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of stuff coming that people don't know about.
Okay.
And like it's not good. So last night was 70.
Ooh, I got 88. What'd you do, Jordy?
The night before was 56.
56?
I've never actually gotten that
I don't think I've ever gotten that low.
I got an
man.
89.
You're grinding too hard.
No, I'm just very excited. This is like
it makes sense.
One of my favorite founders you mentioned earlier is or you were asking earlier is Dana White. I think what he did, what him and the Fertitta brothers did with the UFC, buying it out of bankruptcy for like 2 billion or 2 million, and then selling it for whatever the number is, and still staying on there. And I saw a clip from a podcast interview that he said that's excellent. And it's like I like simple ideas. He's just like, build a life that you can't wait to wake up to. And he's just like, people always ask me, oh, when are you going to retire from the UFC? And he's just like, retire from what?
Yeah.
Like, I get to put on the best fights in the world. I get to travel I get to stay in the nicest hotels, eat at the nicest restaurants, like put on the best live events. He's like, I'm going to be doing this till I'm 80.
Yeah.
And I just love that idea. Like, very simple idea. Am I building a life that I cannot wait to wake up to?
Fantastic.
One industry-oriented question, and then I have I just want you to rant about a specific topic. So what's going on with Spotify? Yesterday, for the first time, I got a clickbait-style video suggested to me on Spotify that was like, I tried 0-star tech, and it was like this kind of like crazy
YouTube video.
It looked exactly like a YouTube video.
It was a YouTube video. It was just a YouTube video that had been ported
It came
over.
out came out, last week that YouTube's the biggest podcast platform in the world now. That's obviously not, sort of not great for Spotify. How do you see Spotify as a platform evolving?
So I don't see, this is another thing, because keep in mind, I like study people for a living, right? And I think that's really the only edge I have. So we've talked about this. Like when I think of like people think of like their portfolio, they tend to like list companies. Mine is like people. It's like, oh, I invested in this dude, and I invested in Justin or Sebastian or like that.
So you're long Daniel Ek.
What's that?
And so in this analogy, you're long Daniel Ek.
Daniel's the best. Like he's the most like the car dude. Yes, I've spent a bunch of time with him. I consider him a friend, like a legit friend. And it's shocking that we're friends, but like every time I talk to him, like he's the idea that what is Spotify, like $120 billion market cap company or something today? I don't pay attention to any like the stock market, but like it's big.
Up public.
Yeah. Hold up and inform this. It's over 100 billion, I would imagine.
120. Nailed it.
Okay. So how the hell is the guy that's been running the company for 18 years? He's the founder. He's still there. He's what, 42? Like young. 44, I don't know, something like that. He's like so underrated. More people should study him. Like he doesn't give a bunch of interviews, and usually the interviews are around product announcements, but like I don't know what's going to happen with Spotify, but I would back up the truck in anything that Daniel does. And as long as Daniel's there and his team, I've met his team. They're fucking incredible. Like, yeah.
They also knew exactly what was going to happen. This is like famous, like Founders Fund lore, is that like Sean Parker and Daniel Ek come in and they're like, we are going to execute like the Napster type music sharing strategy, but it's all going to be legal. We're going to build this platform. And they projected something like, I don't remember the exact number, but they're like in the investment memo, it's like in 2025, we'll have 300 million DAUs. And they got it within like 10% or something. It was like a 20-year projection and they nailed it. It was crazy.
Listen, more important, he's one of the greatest living entrepreneurs without a doubt. That's not even including the stuff he's doing outside of Spotify, which is fucking awesome, incredible, and impactful. More important than that, he's like a good guy. So I'm gonna do more of these like I had dinner with episodes. The people seem to like them and I like doing them. And I had dinner with, and this one had to be like anonymous, so I don't know. I'm not gonna make an episode on it, but because I asked the guy, I mentioned this briefly in a episode, but I was like, I had dinner with I got the opportunity to have dinner with one of the wealthiest people on the planet, very unknown, right? His family, it's a multi-generation dynasty, and his family like commissioned biographies for certain people in the family. And of course, when he's telling me that, I was like, oh, let me get those. And he's like, this is, I say bad boys move in silence. That maxim that reappears over and over again in history of entrepreneurship came from Rockefeller. He's like, absolutely not. I go, why not? And he goes, because I'm not interested in educating my competitors. And the dinner was incredible, but he knows Daniel. And he was just like, what do you think of Daniel? He's incredible, one of the best entrepreneurs in the world. This guy's telling me. He's like, but more important than that, like like when you speak to him, like he's a kind person. He's not one of these, assholes. He has no ego. No ego. He's not much older than all three of us. Well, maybe a lot older than Jordy. I forgot how young Jordy is, but like, it's incredible what this guy has done. Yeah. And I think more people should spend time studying him. Like we're gonna it's true. We're gonna do. He already agreed to we're gonna do. I had dinner with Daniel episode soon because I had an incredible dinner with him. It was the most important. You know what I fucking think of him? I get to meet a lot of incredible people. Last year was the craziest year of my life. That conversation I had with Daniel was by far the most important because he sees no ceiling to what he can achieve. And then he takes that self-belief and he transfers it to you, which I think is very, very important. So I have no idea that look what the fuck they've done in podcasting so far. Yeah. And they're going to continue to do. What I would say, if people are interested in learning more about Spotify, I was just in Stockholm and I found this out. They made a short series on the history of Spotify. Sean Parker's in there, Daniel's in there. Mm-hmm. It's called Spotify, A Product Story. It was out in like 2021, and I think it's 8 or 9 episodes, and then they update it later. But you could just listen to the first ones. And again, everybody's talking about AI, right? In 2000 whatever year, 2025. They were talking about it half a decade ago. They were using it half a decade ago. Sure. They're just he's great. That's all I have to say. Like.
2 minutes left.
Yeah.
Question for you. We're at a unique moment in time where it doesn't feel like a lot of entrepreneurs can afford to not pay attention to geopolitics, right? There's been a lot of time in the last 20 years where it was the generalized advice was focus on your customers. You can kind of ignore everything else, and if you're delivering value for your customers, then you'll do well. We're at a period where there's tariffs coming down. It's impacting a lot of businesses here in the U.S. and entrepreneurs. Who should those entrepreneurs study in this sort of founders world in terms of
Good question.
entrepreneurs and companies that had to navigate sort of like, or does it not even matter, right? Or is it
Nothing,
still just
this is the biggest thing, man. Like the problem is everybody's so focused on the present, right? And history allows you to like take a step back and have a perspective, and instead of like being in front of your fucking face all day long. And so like here's a great book. I just did this episode. It's like absolutely ripping. It's called 400 Pages of Munger and Buffett in their own words. And in there, it talks about the fact that you could have bought Coca-Cola, in after World War II. I'm making up the numbers, but World War One for like nothing, right? Yeah. And it went up by 10,000x since then, or whatever the number is, right? And the point being is, Buffett's point was there's a lot of smart investors and other people and smart capital allocators that pass because they're like, oh, like there's all this uncertainty. There's political uncertainties. There's wars. There's pandemics. So if you think about everything that happened from like 1910 to up until when he's saying this is probably like the 1990s, you went through 2 world wars, you went through multiple pandemics, you went through all this turmoil, you went through asset bubble, asset collapses, high interest rates, low interest rates, everything else. He goes, at the end of the day, you know what mattered? That 60 years from now, they're gonna be serving 1 billion servings, 8-ounce servings of Coke a day. And if somebody is making 1 billion people slightly happier every day by serving this drink to them, that person should make a little bit of money and probably will make a little bit of money. So I'm not actually a good person to ask that question, surprisingly so, because like the amount, you guys know this is like the amount of what I ignore. I figure that the important stuff, like I'll know about wars, I'll know about pandemics, but I have no idea like who's leading in the stock market. I don't like reading the news. I don't do any of this because what matters is like I just stay focused on my customer, right? So if I wake up every day and I read for a few hours, a biography of one of history's greatest entrepreneurs, and I sit down once a week and I talk to you for an hour and I just rip through idea after idea in an hour that you can listen to on 1.5x speed. So it takes 40 minutes of you, right? There's nothing else. Everything else is outside my control. I will get everything I want in life and that I deserve if I just focus on that. Just focus delivering value as much as possible.
And another way to look at this is if you're an entrepreneur and you're running a company that's not your last company, it's the sort of geopolitical environment right now is hyper stressful, right? Because you're thinking about, oh, I want to sell the company, I want to exit and all that stuff. But if you're thinking about, still running the company in 20, 30 years from now, it really doesn't matter what happens in the next 4 years. You just need to, make it through and
dead on. I'm glad you said that because this just spawned another thought to me, right? Where for some reason, and this has not been like on purpose, I've been spending a lot of money I've been spending a lot of time with like family offices and a world I didn't know anything about. And I've been asking questions like, who's the largest like American family office? And, a lot of them are dispersed, whatever the case was, like highly likely it's the Waltons, right? Sam Walton's kids and grandkids. If you pass the Miami Beach marina, right? If you're coming from downtown to the beach, you'll see this giant boat. I looked it up one day. It was like Sam Walton's brother's daughter's boat, right? It is like bigger than anything else, even remote in a giant marina. And it's like, it sticks out like a sore thumb. So there's a great biography that I actually read. It's called Sam Walton, America's Richest Man, written by Vance Trimble. And it was actually published a year before Sam Walton's autobiography came out. And he had a funny story in there because Sam was very private, just focused on satisfying the customer. And then everybody sees Walmart stock. Oh, this is the richest man in America. So during Black Friday, that was, I think, 1987, right? Sam didn't have a cell phone. He doesn't have a beeper. He doesn't have internet, right? So he's driving.
Wait, Black Friday, the retail
Black
holiday,
Friday
or the actual stock market crash? I just want to clarify because you're talking about a retail entrepreneur.
Good point.
Also a big day.
Yeah, Black Friday, biggest stock, I think, single day stock crash ever. I assume that still holds the record. And so anyways, on paper he lost like $1 billion, right? So he goes, he's given a speech at like this charity event, I think in Arkansas, for like kids or something, and somebody he takes questions after. Somebody asks him questions like, how does it feel to lose $1 billion in the stock market today? And his response was great. He goes, I didn't hear about it. It's like he didn't care, because he's just like, I don't care. I'm just like focused on my business. I'm not selling the stock today. I'm never selling it. Like it all that matters is that he took a, if you mean take a simple idea and take it seriously, his dedication to that simple idea, everyday low price. So EDLP. This is everyday low price. Let's just make sure we have the lowest price for our customers. And so let's work backwards from that. We just focus on that. We'll do that forever. And you fast forward, and it's like one of the greatest. If it was concentrated in one person, it is one of the greatest fortunes ever created by taking a simple idea and taking it very seriously.
It's fantastic.
David, we love you.
Thanks for joining.
Thank you for
guys.
joining. Expect us to send you a Zoom link once a week forever, because we're all
This is
in.
just the best way to catch up. I love this.
Yeah, I feel like it robs the people.
We'll do it.
You just
next time in California, I got to suit up though.
Oh yeah.
We'll do suit up. Hey, you said you were gonna frame? Where's that picture?
It's like the Munger. It's like the Munger picture that we're gonna do. We're getting a picture of the Podfather, the most powerful man in Miami, David Senra.
You really are the most powerful man in Miami. We've been talking
not
about
even
this.
close. Not even close.
I don't know, man. I think
you're too humble.
You're holding it down.
You're acting like you're spending too much time with Eric. You're too humble. You're the most powerful man in Miami.
I think if you go to Miami, you got to check in with Senra. You got to let him know, because if you're not there, he's gonna. Yeah. You got to email him. We'll drop his phone number. We'll drop his personal address in the comments, and you can go and stop by. He loves socializing. Invite him to really big events. If it's crowded, like a conference room hall, Las Vegas, invite him to that. That's where he's really in his element. Book signing, podcast signing.
Real quick before I go, so our mutual friend Patrick always gets on me, because he's just like, he'll like try to connect with people, or like he's like, David doesn't read his email. Like, he's just unreachable. And he goes, why don't you have an assistant? I go, why do I need an assistant? He goes, to answer these emails. And they're like, manage your schedule. I go, why do I need a schedule? Like, I just need to wake up every day, read for a few hours, sit down once a week, and talk about what I read. I don't need to do anything else. I don't need to do anything else. It's that simple.
It was great. This morning, we actually published on our X account that you were calling in and you hadn't fully confirmed. You'd been like partially confirmed.
Like, maybe he'll see this.
It was like David Senra calling in at 2 p.m.
Yeah.
No, unless I'm absolutely indisposed by creating a podcast, I will always answer for you guys. You know that.
Fantastic.
Yeah. All
right.
You're the man.
I love you guys. Talk to you later.
Love you.
Talk to you later.
Talk soon.
Bye.